For anyone interested in going to Oshkosh, I wanted to recount my trip to Oshkosh for 2023. That happened during July 22nd through July 30th of 2023. Flight planning began in March, and I consulted with my Uncle Kenton Baughman, who had been to Oshkosh about 35 times, and he has been a long-time visitor at Oshkosh. He flew in there several times in his kit plane, and he's volunteered at Oshkosh for 20 years. And my starting point for Oshkosh was in Camarillo, California, in Southern California. And my aircraft is a 1974 Beechcraft Baron, short body, 55 model. And the range of a Baron is about 6 hours or 1,000 nautical miles. But this is further than most humans want to be in the aircraft because the airplane lacks facilities. So generally 3-4 hours is about the most you want to travel. So therefore my first leg of the trip was to depart from Camarillo and aim for a lower altitude airport in Winslow, Arizona. And so it was summertime, July, and there's high density altitude. So I wanted to try to leave in the morning around 9 and hopefully get there around lunchtime. So I got current in my night landings. I got a weather briefing, and we dropped off the dog at her favorite babysitter. And we took off Saturday morning, landed in Winslow, and we went to stand on the corner at the famous Eagles song. And we had lunch at a diner there in Winslow, Arizona. And the first leg was about 500 miles. The weather was cooperative, and we started to feel the heat when we were on descent. And so after Winslow, we hoped to make either to Kansas or to Albuquerque. However, from our leg from Winslow to Albuquerque, we encountered some moderate turbulence and scattered cells of precipitation. And I could see this on the next rad and Sirius XM weather. And so we ended up diverting our route about 30 degrees north, and we talked to Albuquerque Center. They gave us a visual approach into Albuquerque Sunport. So it was just a short, 250-mile leg from Winslow into Albuquerque. And so, by 4 p.m., the density altitude's getting up around 10,000 feet. So it's best to just stay the night in Albuquerque. We watched Oppenheimer, the film about the atomic bomb, in New Mexico, and so that was cool. And then we departed and went to Southwest Kansas to pick up a couple of passengers, my dad and my brother. And so it was cooler there. Took off in the morning in Albuquerque and landed in Southwest Kansas in Hugoton. The flight was smooth. Got lunch with my dad and brother, and then we took off, flew from Hugoton to Kansas City. And we dropped off my 3 passengers, my wife, daughter, and son, and then we headed into Oshkosh. So from Kansas City, we went directly to Oshkosh, and we got cleared through the Bravo in Kansas City. There was really no weather. There's a little bit of haze and some smoke from Canada. We did the Green Lake approach on the Fisk approach, and we landed with a 2-minute gap, so there was aircraft relatively far ahead of us, and we were able to do a right downwind into 27. And 27, they had me land on the green dot, and as you can see here, this is my approach that a friend of mine took into Oshkosh and landing in the Baron, which, this is kind of a dream come true for me. So I want to take a moment to just point out, that we did everything. We rocked our wings. We landed on the green dot. And it's really not as hard as you think, the Fisk arrival. If you just read the NOTAM, go through it, it all works out fine. So they had us taxi back to the grassy area to the east of runway 27. And we tied the plane down, staked it into the grass. We were not on the concrete pad, and we locked the plane up, and we got a ride with our family over to the camping area. We had a great time at Oshkosh. We saw the warbirds, the home builts, the ultralights, the light sports. We went to the sea base, went to the museum. We took it all in 1 week, and it was a great time. Everything that we hoped it would be. And then, we planned our departure. There was a storm on Thursday night, and we asked for a IFR confirmation number so we could depart Friday morning, even if the weather was marginal. And we were able to depart around 7:30 in the morning on Friday, and we headed back into central Iowa and fueled up there in this town called Ottumwa, Iowa. And from there, my passengers, my dad and my brother, were ready to get back home. And so we went ahead and flew from Ottumwa all the way back into southwest Kansas on another leg. I dropped off 2 passengers and then past Kansas, on the third time, headed back east to Kansas City. And I avoided a little bit of precipitation with the NEXRAD and SiriusXM weather. And that, as you probably noticed, this comes up over and over again. It's very important to have long-range weather data, when you're traveling cross-country like this. And so my final flight that day was from southwest Kansas in Hugoton back to Johnson County. And then I stayed the night there and picked up 3 passengers, my wife, son, and daughter. And then we looked at the weather, and it turned out that weather was a factor. Most of New Mexico and Arizona had scattered thunderstorms. And so we ended up filing IFR from Johnson County to Albuquerque. And of course, a couple of SIGMETs popped up in central Kansas and in the Santa Fe, New Mexico area. And so we had to divert south and alter our route twice for that. And so we went ahead and made it all the way to Albuquerque and stayed the night there. Hoped that the weather would get better. It didn't, of course. And so the weather remained a factor. I looked at the scattered thunderstorms, and it looked like there was maybe a path through the Grand Canyon. So I filed to Camarillo, but, kind of planned that we might have to alter the route. And so Los Angeles Center helped us out. We ended up going through the Grand Canyon corridor. And ultimately, due to fuel and weather, we ended up diverting our destination to Henderson, Nevada. And it was smoky and gusting 35 knots, and the temperature was 107. So, we ended up tying the plane down on the ramp, having lunch in Henderson, Nevada. And then after lunch and fueling the plane, took off in Henderson and did kind of an obstacle departure procedure on 1-7 out of Henderson, and, went across the desert at our cruise altitude, transitioned over to Joshua Approach, and Joshua Approach began our descent into Camarillo. And I have never been so happy to come back through that marine layer into Camarillo. And in total, it was about 30 hours to, prepare to go to Oshkosh. It was a long cross country across Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Kansas, Iowa, and all the way to Wisconsin and the Baron. It taught me how to manage fuel, passenger loads, baggage in accordance with the weight and balance limitations. The summer heat especially affected the density altitude, my mixture settings, the exhaust gas temperatures, and engine performance at higher density altitudes. I had to use all the weather data en route to alter the route as necessary, plan for additional fuel stops and intermediate destinations to account for SIGMETs and also for passenger comfort and safety. And, more than the memories of Oshkosh were the challenge of flying across what was like an ultimate cross-country trip in a Baron. And it was nice to be able to stretch the legs of the Baron and see, how she handles this long cross country. And if you have any questions about going to Oshkosh, feel free to reach out and, just remain flexible in your flight planning. when you're going across the country, and that credit card can always save you. And getting that hotel is oftentimes the best choice rather than continuing on in unfavorable conditions.